So I have my tea for this one. I'm British, I love tea, and it is pretty much powers me for all eternity. Now, today I wanted to do a video. I wrote this a long time ago, mainly because of the news at the time, so I didn't know anything about Cosmic Fury. No one knew anything about Cosmic Fury. We just heard the name that it was coming out, and we knew exactly what was happening with the Zords. That was all. We didn't know 10 episodes was going to be there. So when I kind of wrote this, I kind of had it in mind that we were going to get, say, 22 episodes or maybe a little bit less, but this could have only been one season. We didn't know it, but let's talk about this. So let me give you some backstory on a lot of stuff. This is how I've seen the fandom go at Simon quite a few times. Now, do you remember the Power Ranger split that happened? Toei and Hasbro parted ways. We know all about this. And when Simon came out and said, no, this hasn't happened, you know, they've got a very good partnership, blah, blah, blah. Everyone cheered for Simon. Like, you tell him, Simon, you tell him this, like, oh my God, like, you know, you've done right. You tell those people that, you know, the split isn't happening. You're the man. Happened all the time. When Simon came out and said, hey, guess what? We're not doing Lupin Ranger versus Pata Ranger. We're not adapting 12 Rangers into Q Ranger. It's going to be this. Most people went against Simon. How dare you say this? You don't know nothing. You could easily do this. Rah, rah, rah. It was a thing. It was a thing. It's so interesting to see how people quickly turned, how they loved when Simon said, like, oh, those guys talking about the split, pfft, not going to happen. And then suddenly those people that cheered for him went against him when Simon came out with great logic and said, hey, this is the reason why. They didn't like that whatsoever. So very interesting to see on that one. When I saw all the responses on this, I was like, no, I completely understand. You have 12 Rangers to work with. And even though that you used, say, the first 6, and then you had another 6 Rangers come in, you would have to have a backstory. And we didn't know how many episodes we were going to get, if any, you know, it could have been a special. Either way, there was so much stuff that, you know, Rangers would have been pushed back. We wouldn't know what's going on, and you wouldn't have been able to tell 40 episodes or how many episodes in Q Ranger into Cosmic Fury. It's impossible because there's just so much backstory, and you wouldn't be able to get the ones that you want. It was just absolutely impossible. And if people say, oh my God, like, you know, you say it's impossible, but Dino Charge did it. I'm getting to that. Don't worry, I have a segment on that. It's coming up. So to kind of back up these terms, there is a section in the Power Rangers visual history which talks about how Dino Charge was and how you had at least 10 Rangers in that one. And this is what it says. Juggling lots of characters can make a Ranger episode very complex, Becca Barnes admits. With 10 in a scene, it can be very difficult to give each character the focus they deserve, and it often worked against us when the focus of our stories is heroics, heart, and humor. With so many Rangers, the writers tried to save assembling the full team for important story moments, so it would make them all more exciting, says Dale. Despite the challenges faced by the writers, executive producer Brian feels the season was ultimately successful in handling character development and storylines for 10 Rangers. It's very hard to service 5 or 6 Rangers in 22-minute stories, he explains. Chip was able to do that for 10 Rangers in this season. We didn't have an hour like most superhero shows. We only had a certain amount of time of action footage that we have to use from our Japanese partners, and we have to write around those segments. I don't think fans realize what an absolute amazing job Chip and his team were able to do in a very limited amount of time. I don't know what version that they were watching or kind of writing, filming, and editing, but I will talk about this much more in the video. But I feel like they didn't. I mean, can you tell me in the comments about how much like character development or how much screen time, like say Prince Philip got, or some of the other characters? I mean, did you feel that they got as much kind of character development as, like, say, Tyler or Shelby or any of those characters? Because I don't remember that, and I remember them just dipping out a lot and we would never see them. But please let me know in the comments below. All the way through Dino Charge, you had the main focus on 7 Rangers. You had red, blue, green, pink, black, gold, and purple, and the rest you very rarely saw whatsoever. Like, they would occasionally come back, but most of the time they were doing their own thing. I mean, look at the whole thing with Tyler's dad when he became a ranger, but the whole lead up was Tyler was going to find his father, and as soon as he found his dad, that's it. He just disappeared again. Like, and it wasn't like, oh my God, I can't see him. It was just like, oh, dad's doing this in another part of the world and he can't get here. But he says that if you give him a shout, he'll be here in a jiffy. You didn't see any of the progression. I think Tyler's dad was the most progression that you got out of all of them, where the others just basically stopped and you never saw them, which again infuriated me so much, because you easily could have done this over at least 40 episodes, which Dino Charge actually got through Dino Charge and Super Dino Charge. Although Chip Lynn in this thought he was doing the best, I generally think that he wasn't, and it kind of shows all the way through Dino Charge and Super Dino Charge. Now, they say that you could have spent an hour in this, and you know, I'm like, well, why did you have to follow the Sentai? You could have easily have filmed your own stuff that didn't need Sentai footage. You had the suits there. This is one thing I don't understand properly, is that they have access to all the suits, all the props, and yet they don't use them whatsoever. Like, there'll be some clips where they'll be in, like, say, the forest and they'll be next to each other. So why couldn't you then grab them and say, hey, we're going to do like some scenes with you today, and this is going to be your main thing. So this would be the most easiest thing to do. But I generally am kind of curious to know, why wouldn't you film your own stuff? Why did you have to follow the Sentai? Was it just that locked in? It's kind of really irritating so much. And these are some questions that I would really love to ask Chip, as well as other people on the show, of why wouldn't you do your own thing? It would make more sense to do that. So back in the book, they say that they wanted to keep Dino Charge simple, but yet it's interesting to see that the writers admit this. But then you have a lot of fans saying, oh, it's easy enough to do. Yet the writers wanted to keep things completely simple. It's so interesting. It feels like they didn't really care. They just wanted to have an easy life, which again, you can see this in the show. If you don't want to put all your effort and hard work into it, yeah, it's going to come off. Dino Charge wasn't that bad at times, but it felt It's not one of my favorite seasons. So when I hear Simon saying that this can't be done, I believe what he says. I know that he's making the right choice. The reason why we didn't have 12 Rangers is because even if you had another 6 more Rangers come into it, you just wouldn't be able to tell that story to go, oh, I really feel a connection to these characters. Now, Cosmic Fury may seem quite easy. It may seem quite the same as the rest, but we know the characters. We've gone all the way through each character going through different arcs. We've seen other characters come in and go. When Fern joins, we didn't know that she was, but now we do. But we don't have to go like, oh, we need like 2-3 episodes of backstory because this is a new character. We already know this because it's already been set up in Dino Fury, and that's what I like. And this is what happens when we have a cast going on for like, say, 3 to 4 years. We know what they are like. Look at Mighty Morphing. That's exactly the same as what we're seeing right now. Those characters we know, so we don't have to have more backstory. And when people say, oh, I don't care about backstory, some people do. It's important because you want that character to be fulfilling. You want that character to carry it and go, cool, I know this character. I can relate to this character, rather than someone come running in going, hi guys, it's morphing time. All right, I'm off. See you later. Doesn't work like that. And Dino Charge did that with the characters. I still really wanted a bit more kind of British representation. We had that with the Knights of Xandar. I wanted to see more of Prince Philip, because when do you get proper royalty? Okay, Ranger royalty. When do you get that sort of character development in Power Rangers? Sometimes you don't, and I feel like when everyone says, like, when people say I want representation in this, I want to see some British people in there too. It's the reason why Ivan's one of my favorite Gold Rangers, because he's British technically, but either way, I like it, and I like seeing that sort of character in the show. I think it's really interesting to see how the writers and the people working for Saban really felt about the show, and you can see the way that the show starts to degrade after a certain amount of time. Now, I don't know if the writers were pushed to do their to the max on writing, or if it was just a generic, oh, we'll just write up something, it's for kids, they don't care. And when I kind of think about this, I generally think that when it comes to writing, you should write to the best of your advantage. If the showrunner doesn't like it or someone doesn't like it and you have to dumb it down, at least you can turn around and say, hey, I wrote this to the best of my ability. What's coming up next? I think it's one of those little things right there. I just get really infuriated because this brand's been going on for 30 years now, and we're slowly getting decent writing, and now the show is going off air before it gets its reboot in whenever, 2024, 2025, 2026, whichever year. And I really wanted Power Rangers to keep getting better with the writing, especially from Beast Morphers, Dino Fury, and, well, what we're seeing, Cosmic Fury, so I'll say it, and Cosmic Fury. When I hear the argument of, but Dino Charge did this, go back and watch those episodes with the Rangers that were very rarely in it. Where were they? If you can say that that's the sort of writing that you want, that you really think is fantastic, then take that, apply it to Q Ranger and say, could you do that? Or would you have preferred like Q Ranger to be that level of writing? Because I'm sure that all those characters that you love, or that one character that you love all the time, you would want to see become better. So take that logic, apply it to Q Ranger and go, is this good or not? And then let me know down below in the comments. Anyway, this is the last time I'm going to mention this, not unless something massively comes up. I might talk about this again at the end of Cosmic Fury, or I already have, depending. It's not out yet by the time of this recording. But for now, I'm going to be leaving this subject alone because, again, I think I've talked about it in other videos. I know it's kind of an old subject, but I kind of really wanted to talk about it. So yeah, I am going to leave it there. What do you think about this? Let me know down below in the comments. Check out the other videos we've got on the channel. Why not look at the channel memberships and join the channel memberships? Because that's really cool. But yeah, I think it is. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. I want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters, and I wanted to shout out Kimono Cat. Your help does go a long way to support the channel. And if you want to consider helping the channel, then links to my Patreon as well as the channel members are listed below.
あらあら、チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。